Hi, friends. I'm Dana Lewison, therapist and founder of the Empowerment Collective.
And I'm Dr. Roshni Patel. I am a board certified gynecologist and the physician founder of Luminate Gynecology.
All right, ladies, this is episode 10, which is also the last episode in our first ever season of No Sick Days. Roshni, can you believe it?
It went by fast.
It flew by. And given that this is our season wrap up, we thought that this was an appropriate time to first reflect on what we've learned along the way. Second, discuss what we are still figuring out. And then lastly, what we hope you, our listeners, are taking with you.
Yes. This season was really not so much about finding the answers or answering every single question. It was more about naming the load that women are carrying and giving us some language to the things like many of us have been feeling for years, both personally, professionally, and in healthcare.
Yeah, let's get into it.
So I'll just jump right in.
Yeah.
Things that we've kind of learned, if I'm going to reflect, and then some patterns that we keep seeing across like different episodes. One of the big ones is that women are not failing; they're overloaded, and we've talked about this in different ways. We're doing all the things, work, family, managers, caregivers, career navigators, personal chefs, personal
Yeah.
assistants to our very busy children, and sometimes the symptoms that we're feeling because we're overloaded are not flaws or signs that we're failing, but they're really signals that, when we're feeling pissed off or frustrated or hitting a wall or run down, these are really just signals that, hey, let's take a beat. Let's pause, let's reflect and reassess. And like, what can we leave and what do we need to take with us?
Right. And we've spoken so much about the emotional labor and that invisible load, as
Mhm.
we like to call it. And we need to shed an light on what modern women are working through. The sheer volume of responsibilities that we have it just makes no sense. Traditionally, women did more of the homework or the housework because men were at the office. But that's no longer the narrative for so many of us, right? Women are working in and out of the home. Partners, both men and women, are also working in and out of the home. And working from home virtually has become so
Mhm.
much prominent as well. So, why do women continue to carry so much more of that invisible load at home? We've discussed why setting boundaries feels so hard for women. We've been the emotional managers for so long. So, we're really going to have to reevaluate, why we continue to make the lives easier for everybody else and then do not do that for ourselves. We
Yeah.
continue to say yes because we've always said yes, right? Or do we want to learn how to maybe be uncomfortable for a bit while we change these patterns that will make our lives easier moving forward? But perhaps now it just might feel a little wonky.
Yeah. And, one thing that really stood out was over the course of this season was how often, women come in or come to see me as a gynecologist, I should say, and they're thinking that something's wrong with them. Like there's a
Mm.
problem when it's really they're actually both mentally and physically responding appropriately to being overloaded, overstressed from carrying all those loads that women do. They think that they should be able to just do it, but that's not the case. They're overloaded. They're overactivated.
Right. We talked about that
Mhm.
last week with the cortisol, and our
Yeah.
cortisol levels are just activated. So we're constantly activated. And then you go to doctors, not you, not me, but we go to, other people and we're told to just push through. And we can, right? We've talked about it that we are, as women, fantastic at white knuckling things. And so we get used to it. And so when a
Yeah.
doctor is just like, oh, yeah, that's normal, or oh, yeah, you got this, great. We just continue to do it. And then unfortunately, I think leads many women back into your office and back into mine, are further mental and physical health complaints because
Mhm.
the symptoms come out. Our bodies just can't keep up with that load.
Yeah.
And so we have symptoms of fatigue, the hormonal shifts, sleep disruptions, cycle changes. I could go on and
Yeah.
on and on. We're expected just to absorb that stress and be quiet about it and function as if nothing is happening. But that's not, as I like to say to my clients, and I even say this to friends, your body is going to force you to rest, whether you do
Yep.
it for yourself or not. So either you take the time for yourself or your body's going to force it in a form of sickness or illness. You're going to be run down. So you have to find a way to get that rest whether you want to or not.
Right. Yeah. It's either going to be like by choice or by force kind of thing.
Like,
And I think we've had a lot of great conversations around that space, but of course, as we both know, there's still some things that we want to navigate and kind of understand. What do you think that we need to do to continue or explore maybe in the second season of No Sick Days?
season 2. Well, boundaries. I mean, I think that that's the episode so many people have, touched on. I think at least I've heard the most people reach out about that episode or
Yeah.
speak up to that episode. And it goes along with the emotional load as well, cognitive load. We need to work on setting those boundaries, you guys. Boundaries
Yeah.
with our families, with our friends, our partners, and even our children. So many of our clients are dealing with this day to day. We live by these rules, by these ideals that don't actually work for us, but they become habitual. They become patterns of behavior. And so we cling to them, we continue to do them, but they don't necessarily continue to serve us or really maybe ever served us.
Hmm.
So we need to ask ourselves about them, why? Why are we clinging to these ideals that don't serve us? Did I start this? Why am I continuing to do it? Whose expectation is this? Did I learn it in childhood? Is my partner expecting this of me? And why am I holding myself to this standard? And then what would happen if I didn't do this behavior? So, you, Roshni, always say no is a full sentence. And saying no, I love it. And saying no without an explanation or over explanation is so
Yep.
important and it's okay. And over time, that'll feel really good. But we need to remember that anything that we do for the first time is going to feel weird. It's going
Yep.
to feel wonky. It's supposed to. You are creating new neural pathways. That's not an
Yeah.
easy task. So it should feel weird and hard and bizarre, but you can do hard things and we do them every single day, especially if you're showing up and, doing patterns of behavior that you hate doing because you've done them every day your whole life and that's uncomfortable as it is. So if you can do that, you
Yeah.
can feel a little uncomfortable while you change an unhealthy pattern.
Absolutely. And I think, boundaries and like asking why they even exist or why we do what we do and do we need this boundary and why not? And just opening up that conversation, I think also touches on another thing that we've seen a lot is guilt. My mother's did it, so I have to do it, or women do this, and I'm supposed to. Like guilt, shame. And the biggest area I see this guilt showing up is like guilt around that pause or guilt around rest. And this is really tied into my professional world, being a physician, going through medical training, practicing in the real world, my upbringing, and all these things for me definitely have compounded and like amplified. And we as women, and also we as doctors, and then being a female doctor, so much of this like idea of like your value is tied to how much you can do and what you are doing, which is the
Right.
antithesis of rest, right? The
Right.
the polar opposite of rest, reflection, pause, slow down, like whatever you want to call it. Um, and we were talking very candidly before we recorded. Like, I am sort of catching myself in this kind of go, go, go. Personally, I'm trying to navigate this urge to explain myself and apologize. And when I'm like, I need to just take a beat and think about this. I need some rest. I can say no. I can choose to do it differently and then come back, after I've like kind of checked in with what I'm trying to actually accomplish here and what is actually important and then show up better. So
Yes.
we're not perfect.
No, we're
Yeah.
navigating it also, right? It's
Right.
about learning as you go. And you have to
Right. And
mess up
then
and you have to feel uncomfortable to realize what you want to change, right? This doesn't feel good. I need to change this. And then think about what it is and ask those questions I was saying before. Why? Am I
Mhm.
doing it? What is it that I'm trying to prove? Right. And
Yeah.
where are these expectations coming from?
Right, and then just to summarize that, it kind of in a different way, like, we see that. We know inherently, "Hey, I can't do the job of 10 people," or, "I can't, live my life the way they did 20 years ago." Even that awareness doesn't change the fact that it's difficult. Like, any new
Yeah.
thing, right? Like, as you said, like, any new habit, you're rewiring pathways in our brain. Awareness doesn't erase difficulty, and growth, progress, changing the narrative, whatever you wanna call it, isn't always linear. I am living proof of this, right? Sometimes it does feel like 2 steps forward, 1 step back, but then each time I'm just chipping away, making progress to where I wanna be. You touched on something about space. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that, like, about reclaiming, space and taking up space.
Yeah, for me, reclaiming space and taking up space is about really being protective of your time, your energy, your attention, your physical, emotional boundaries. Example of this, if you feel like you are the parent who is constantly the one who's jumping in all the time to help a child, let's say, um, what would happen if you didn't?
Mhm.
What would happen if, your child comes to you for the 8,000th time, "Mommy, blah, 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 blah," and instead you direct them to go ask the other parent. So many of my clients, when I ask them this question, immediate response is they would feel guilty. They would feel bad. Like, all of a sudden, that means they're not showing up for their child. But you're not hurting anyone. You're not
Right.
showing up for your child. You're making sure they're getting care and support just
Yeah.
from somebody else.
Correct.
Right? You're not doing anything wrong. You're not doing anything wrong when you drop them at school. Someone else is teaching them, someone else is helping them. It's the same thing at home. Someone else can help them, someone else can be
Right.
there for them. So you are not being selfish, right? Reclaiming your space, your time, your energy. You are not being selfish. You are not being unkind. You are not cutting people off. You
Mhm.
are redirecting to conserve your own energy because you need that. You need that space. You need that time for yourself. And having somebody else who has the resources to step in because you're a team, right? It's not just
Yeah.
you. This is your
Right.
teammate, your partner. It's not all on you to fix everything. You are then giving yourself more space and more time. So, again, back to those questions we need to ask ourselves.
Mhm.
Why is it that women in general feel obligated to justify our needs? When did this begin and why does it need to continue? And who does it continue to serve? What are
Mm.
you getting from it? So, not just asking, well, what is the other person getting from? Of course, we know what they're getting from it. They get to sit on the sofa while you're running around. Fine, I have to be that person too. But what are you getting from it? So if, example, I hear, things like, well, if I don't pack him lunch, then, my husband or my partner would just do it all wrong. So I might as well just do it. Otherwise I have to do it and fix everything. Well, your partner certainly won't learn how to do it right if you continue to jump in every time.
Right.
So reclaiming your space doesn't mean you're not caring. It just
Right.
means that you stop disappearing and you are now taking up space in a new way that you own and you have a
Mhm.
say in. And
Yes.
therefore, you now have the energy to put elsewhere or where you want it to go.
Mhm.
And you're also holding your partner accountable to step in and do the things that they also can do.
Right. That's so huge. And I'll just say, looking at things from a gynecologist perspective, when we don't take up space or we don't give ourselves that moment of pause or rest, there are, physical things, that can happen. It's funny. I think there's a country in Scandinavia or in the Scandinavian region that now has like prescribed like travel as like treatment. Yeah. I'm on like
Oh,
Norway or Sweden, Denmark. And rest and space and travel, you could consider that as an extension of rest, recreation. They're not indulgences. They are a part of like function for successful like metabolic and physiologic function, right? We don't want to get to a crisis point where you're having a panic attack or a mental breakdown.
yeah.
Um, or like a true crisis to then to be like, okay, mommy had a breakdown. She's, she needs something more drastic. Like, let's kind of nip it in the bud before, right? We get to like a level 10, right? Let's get that intervention at a 3 or a 4. We don't need a diagnosis or a crisis to justify taking up space or to justify anything really. Like everyone needs a break, you know?
Yes.
That's what I think.
Yes. It makes me think of, do you remember in the movie The Holiday when Cameron Diaz is looking for a vacation to go on in the beginning? And she's like, kayak for one, no thanks. And I always joke, I'm like, kayak for one, yes,
Sign me
sign
up.
me up. Like, where do I go? Right.
I know. I'm like, is
So
there a spa for what?
I'm like, "Oh my god, yes, please. I don't need anything fancy. Kayak for
Hmm.
one." But yeah, you're absolutely right. Taking that time for ourselves, going on those trips, and it doesn't have to be fancy. I always joke there's a local zoo nearby. Probably know which one I'm talking about.
Huh?
And there's like a little inn, like a rundown
Oh,
inn across the street.
okay.
And I'm always like, I'll stay there. Like it's the name of the
Yeah.
zoo, hotel or
Okay.
motel. Like, no, but also I'm like, I'll go there. Like I'll sleep across from the lions. Like I don't care, anywhere is good. So just having that time to yourself, whatever it takes,
Yeah.
coffee in Target parking lot, anywhere, having that, it's important.
Yeah.
If our listeners and all of you out there and even us, right, things that you can take away from this season is
Hmm.
recognizing that you are not broken. You are responding to a real load. We know what that feels like.
Hmm.
Rishi and I talk about it. We talk about it all the time.
All the time.
And you are allowed to choose yourself. We give you permission. You have permission. Look, doctor, therapist, we both are
Yeah.
telling you right now, you have permission to do that. And you can choose yourself even when no one in the room is clapping for you,
Hmm.
but you can make those changes. It's hard. It's not easy.
Yeah.
As we
Yeah.
discussed, it's going to feel uncomfortable. So give yourself some grace and also reach out for support when you do need it.
Yeah. So big. Taking that beat, asking for help. And this is really landing pretty strongly for me today because I have started seeing patients for my new practice in person. And I'll just share like a personal takeaway. I will keep fighting for this passion project. Like it is a goal of mine to a space for women's health, specifically gynecology, that is different than what we know, right? And but it also reflects like my personality. And it is a passion project. It's a huge risk also. It's a huge step out of my comfort zone. But I think in doing that, I am, taking up space, staying loud, and that is going to help me drive how I live this next decade. Like I'm in my 40s, early 40s. I know I want it to be different than my 30s. No one's watching except me. And I still think, it's important to, when I look back at like, hey, did I push for what I wanted to push in? And like that's important to me. So like I will continue to push. Women, ladies, listeners, what's important to you and how do you want to pursue it? Right. That's a real important question sometimes in the midst of life and work that's not, a passion project and the kids and the drop offs and the birthday parties. So what am I doing? What am I here for? Kind of gets lost. And this is me saying out loud, go out and do it. Find your passion projects. I mean, take it from us. We're two independent women, who've launched our own businesses. It can be done,
Yeah.
you know? Dana, any
And
personal reflections?
well, I am going to say, as the
Yeah.
therapist in the room, I'm going to
Yeah.
challenge you and say, when
Yeah.
you say no one's watching, your kids are watching,
Oh,
girl.
yeah.
Like your
Yeah.
daughter's watching.
I'm doing it
So
for her.
you are. Look at her
Yeah.
badass mom paving the way for women, doing it differently, showing up for them and giving care that was not in a different way that we did not have, right? And we're talking about it. We're talking about it in ways that no one spoke about it for us. We are talking openly and honestly and right, like we get to say the word vagina on a podcast. That's
Yeah.
pretty awesome.
Yeah.
So, talking about women and health and self-esteem and mental health and boundaries and menopause to me
Hmm.
is empowering. And so, yeah, you're doing it. You're doing it and you're showing up and your daughter's watching. Just had to
Yeah.
point that
Plug the
out.
kids. Yeah, it's funny.
Exactly.
Like, we say like the mental load and the invisible load and whatever we want to call it. Yeah, we're doing all the things. And sometimes I'm like, their kids aren't gonna remember, every single thing, but they'll remember the feeling, still remember how I was when I would come home, like, and those little things. I'm like, okay, how can I show up better for them, and inspire them, maybe. So yeah, that's just my little 2 cents.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah, my reflections on this process, I mean, it's been a whole lot of fun, I will say that. But it also is just a good reminder in our own lives and with my clients and the women out there, a reminder of, what are we doing out of obligation and habit that is costing us energy? Where could we be setting boundaries to benefit our mental and our physical health? Because again, your body is going to force you to rest, whether you want to or not. So, where can we step in and set that boundary and give ourselves that space before, we get run down and are feeling activated and our bodies say, okay, cool. Well, now you're run down and your immune system can't fight as well. And cool, now you have the flu. So now you're
Yeah.
out for 5 days. So good luck
Yeah.
to you because you don't get a sick day and you still have to do all the things and run the children all around. Now you're just going to do it wearing a mask. And then what would it look like if you did take up that space without apologizing? Because it feels really empowering. And I want everyone to know how good that feels, right? Try saying no, try taking up the space on your own. Tell your kids to go ask your partner to get the band aid, to make the bowl
Mhm.
of macaroni and cheese, to find the tissues. If they
Mhm.
can't find the tissues, tell them to look harder to find the tissues. Do
Yeah.
not get up and find them the tissues. They can find the
Right.
tissues. They are grown ass adults who, when they lived on their own, could probably find the tissues. So you don't have to enable. You can also flip the script, change the narrative.
Yeah, totally. I think, we're all learning. We're all
Mhm.
navigating. I think the fact that we can talk about this stuff openly, you know, with a slightly different lens than those before us is huge. And I'm just so grateful that I get to have these conversations with you um along the way. And this project has been, and it will continue to be, enriching, inspiring, and I hope motivating. I mean, I know it's motivating for us, but I hope for the women
Yeah.
and other audience members that are listening, because it's not just women. If you have a woman in your life somewhere in her 40s, or not, or just a woman in your life, which I would assume yes, these are some of the conversation we need to start having if we want to, like you said, flip the script, change the dynamic, live better. So yeah, that's my 4 cents now.
Yeah. And just, a thank you to everybody who has listened, who has shown up for us this season. This has been just so much fun getting to do this and be loud. And this is our way of taking up space and being
Hmm.
loud. Whether you listen to one of our episodes or listen to all of them, we are just beyond appreciative and grateful for everyone who has tuned in, who's asked questions, who has messaged us. It really means the world to us.
And we're going to use some of that feedback for the next season, I think, right?
Yes, season two.
Yeah.
So
So keep chiming in, ladies.
yes, but in the meantime, while we are
Hmm.
still learning and we are
Hmm.
working right alongside of you to take up space, we also know that there are
No sick days.
no sick days. Thank you for listening, everyone.
Thank you.
Take care. No sick days is for information and education only. It is not medical or mental health treatment. Listening to this podcast does not create a medical or therapeutic relationship. Please talk to a qualified professional for care that is right for you.